What is up, everybody? Welcome back. My name is Dr. Brandon Osborne. I'm the Director of Training here at Momentum WOD. What we've been doing over the course of the last 4 to 6 weeks is looking at some of your favorite personalities from the realm of combat sports, and we have been breaking down their strength training routines, letting you know what we like, what we don't like, and what we would change so you can take that information and implement it in your own strength training. Today we're going to be looking at the strength training routine of somebody who is loosely affiliated with the sport of MMA. He is more a fan than a participant, but nonetheless he is somebody who is entwined in the culture, and we are going to look at his kettlebell training routine, which he has been a prominent advocate for over the course of the last 18 months. And we're going to look at what he's doing and see what he could change potentially. The individual who we're looking at today is going to be Action Bronson. Action is a rapper, a food critic, an artist, and just a general personality in culture today. And he has been outspoken about his passion for not only mixed martial arts but jiu-jitsu as well. And he is a newly minted white belt. So we're actually going to look at a clip of him grappling today as well. So hang tight, grab your popcorn, and let's take a look at Action Bronson's strength training routine. So I've compiled a series of clips today from Action's Instagram. If you don't follow him, show him some love. His Instagram is here above. He's a good follow. He's got some interesting and entertaining content on his social media. I've chosen a couple of different clips today, which I've kind of briefly glanced over, that we are going to break down for a couple of different reasons. Some of the things that we're going to see today are common errors that we've seen in our other past videos that I just want to reiterate the mistakes that are being made. Some of the things he's actually doing really, really well, and I want to highlight those things. So let's get started. So the first clip we have of Action, he's in his home exercise space, and he is doing a kettlebell swing descending ladder. Where he has some very heavy kettlebells. It looks like a 204 pound, 176 pound, 150 pound, and 97 pound kettlebells. With this sequence, I mean, he is working hard. He is putting in work right now. And, you know, one of the biggest criticisms people have of kettlebell training is that you can't go heavy. You can't get the same amount of work done that you would with a barbell, and that is just simply not true. It's a different type of training, but you can still load up, you can still train with a significant amount of resistance, and you can still get just as good, if not better, of a workout with kettlebells than you could get with a heavy barbell workout. The thing Action's doing here, and we're going to run this clip back a little bit, in his ladder, he's starting with, the weight is a 204 pound kettlebell. As he goes through this sequence, you'll see that his form improves significantly. But on this first one, I would say the risk is not worth the reward, even though it makes for a great Instagram post. His technique, once he gets going, it looks okay, but initially off the bat, I think that he's at risk for hurting himself with such a heavy weight, and his form is compromised in the process. You know, there's a lot of pulling from the back, there's a lot of pulling with the arms and the shoulders, and in my opinion, I think he would be better suited to start off at a lower weight and start there and then descend from that point forward. You know, but as he goes along, you know, despite the fact that these kettlebells are monstrous, he's actually performing this exercise, this sequence, with pretty good technique. And as he's doing this, I mean, there is nothing that you could do that would exceed the power to be gained from doing something like this. His posterior chain is firing. He has to be working hard to be getting those kettlebells through those swinging motions. The last bell that he's working with, you'll see, I'm going to pause real quick. has actually made an appearance in a past video that we did. This is the same bell that Joe Rogan was using when we critiqued his kettlebell training technique. And I have to say that I made a mistake in the other video. We were talking about how he was using a 72-pound kettlebell to do an overhead push press to squat. I believe that bell is a, I think on it calls it 2 pood. And he was actually using this bell, which is heavier than that, 90-something pound bell, which is 2.5 pood. And if you're not familiar with what a pood is, you can watch our past video. It's heavyweight. Even though this is the bottom of the ladder, he's still using close to 100 pounds for his 2-arm swings, which is impressive. And there is a lot to be gained, as I said before. Core endurance and power, posterior chain power, metabolic conditioning, all of those things come along with training kettlebell swings. The next clip we have here, looks like action is on the mats. He is in closed guard, and I think he's trying to pass guard. I'm not sure who he's grappling with. Looks like he's locking up some wrist control there. Might be subject to an arm bar. He's past the guard. Might have gotten triangled if his opposition was on the offensive a little bit more so, but it's cool to see him on the mats. It's cool to see him embracing the culture that he has been a fan of for so long. And I think, you know, I talked about a little bit in our last video as well. That's how I got started training jiu-jitsu, was being a fan of combat sports, and then using that as kind of a springboard to get into actual training. So it's neat to see other people doing the same, especially somebody who's as outspoken about the craft as action is. So that's cool to see. It's the only reason I included that. So as we keep scrolling down his Instagram page, there's a ton of different clips about with him training kettlebells and other things like steel maces, which we'll get to later. At this clip, I included for 2 reasons. One, I think it's a good clip to break down. And 2, in the background, you can hear somebody's voice. And as I was listening to it, I knew I recognized the voice, but I couldn't put my finger on who it was. And I listened to it over like 3 or 4 times, and I finally figured out whose voice it was. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but if you know, reply in the comments below. Let me know who you think is talking in this video. It's a mixed martial artist who is fairly well known.
It looked like somebody that had been out for over 600 days, but what are your initial thoughts on what went down?
First I was going to be just a bit on my wrist. I came out the long year and a half for me, you know, and I prepped so hard and something, you know, so pushing for recovery, but I told him when he got into it, I said I do not believe in this, you know, I believe he played himself properly, mentally, and he was fine. And I showed him tonight, I'm just getting into the flow of it and had that freak accident happened. I'm heartbreaking.
So he's working through this, and if you noticed, he's doing 2-arm swings again. In our first clip, which is a more recent clip of him training, his technique is actually a little bit better than it is here. So over the course of the last 6 to 9 months, however long it's been since this was posted, his form has actually improved. So he's learning and he's getting better, and he's training safer as his technique is evolving here. The thing that he's doing here that I think we've seen in the past with other people, which is one of the most common errors when we're performing kettlebell swings, is he's going into his hinge too soon in his backswing, and as a result his swing looks a little squatty as opposed to being a true hinge. When you're going through your backswing, you want to hold off as long as possible before you initiate the hinge, and the way that you can tell that you're doing this properly is if you wait until your elbows contact your rib cage on that backswing, and if they do, that's the point when you send those hips back, powerfully drive through the heels, and explode out of that position to a tall standing neutral position, which is going to generate the hip power to force that kettlebell back into the upswing. So here he's a little eager to start that backswing, and you can see as a result he's kind of doing like a squat before he hinges back a little bit. So it's not terrible, but I would make that small improvement and that small change to improve that technique. Next thing he's doing is he's going into one arm dead cleans. And of note here, something I want to talk about because people have been asking me about this. If you look on Action's forearm, he actually has some sort of a brace on it, and a lot of people struggle with this when they're training with kettlebells and when they're training jiu-jitsu. So I think it's a good point to bring it up. The reason he has that brace on his forearm is likely, I'm speculating, but is likely because he's experiencing some elbow discomfort when he's training. A very common injury, there's two of them in particular. One is lateral epicondylitis and one is medial epicondylitis, which are more commonly known as golfer's elbow and tennis elbow. I reverse the order there, tennis elbow and golfer's elbow. But they're very common sort of overuse or mechanical injuries that are a byproduct of mechanical flaws when training. For somebody who is experiencing this sort of injury, dead cleans would not be my choice of exercise when it comes to performing cleans. I'd be sticking with more of a traditional clean where you can hike the kettlebell, use that momentum to pull the kettlebell or drive the kettlebell into the front rack. The issue with this is the more that you're creating flexion of the forearm, the more likely it is that you're going to perpetuate that sort of injury. It can be an easy injury to avoid, it can be an easy injury to resolve. You just have to be doing the right things in each direction to prevent and fix the problem if it does happen. So I would change that here. And then when he's going into these dead cleans, we see once again an error that we've seen in past videos. His front rack isn't strong and vertical. It's opened up a little bit. His wrist position looks pretty good in most of the cleans, but the forearm position is off, which in turn is going to stress certain joints more so than other joints. And at the end of that first sequence, he did get a little sloppy. The bell started hitting that forearm, which we've seen many times before. So that bell, it shouldn't be flipping over onto the wrist. It should be rotating around the wrist. So we're moving to the left side. We see that front rack's a little bit open again. His form isn't bad. It just, there's room for improvement once again. You know, once you start training, it's more about refining technique, and I'm still doing that to this day. So I'm guilty of that as well. There is no perfect. There's always the pursuit of better, and I think, you know, as we see people who are training and have been training with kettlebells for a while, it's not a matter of like they need a complete overhaul of their technique. There's just little details that need some fine tuning, and I think that's the case with Action as well. Here he's in what looks like a restaurant doing some squats, and I think that the caption said he was doing something like 300 something repetitions, which I'm sure he will be sore tomorrow. All right, so this is one of our last clips here, and he's doing a double clean to a front rack position into a front rack squat. I guess it would be a box squat. I think he's in the On It gym, which is a fairly well-known gym because of Mr. Rogan. So once again, and I want to go into a little bit more detail with this one, breaking down specifically what's happening, what's compensating as a result of the positioning that he's in. So we look at this front rack position. Your elbows should be tight to your body, wrist strong, forearms vertical. And what you should feel there is you should feel your core working, you should feel your lats firing to stabilize that position. When you put yourself in this position, the front rack, and this is something we see often, and those arms are out like this, the stress of that position changes from something that should be more local and central to something that is more distal, farther away from the midline of your body. And as a result of that, we're going to find more stress on the shoulders, elbows, and wrists. So we talked about his overuse injury, that lateral or medial epicondylitis earlier. There's a good chance that these small things that he's doing over time could be adding up to perpetuate that sort of an injury. Here, when he's out here, think about how much stress and pressure that puts on the shoulder as a result of being in that position. So I think if he just tightened those things up, really bring those elbows in and hold that position strong, he's not only going to get more out of the exercise and out of the movement because the stabilization is going to change and be more functional, but there's less likelihood that he's going to injure himself, which is one of the big issues that we see not only in jiu-jitsu but with kettlebell training when we don't refine that technique. So, and that's the reason why I'm doing these videos, because you know, hopefully he fixes this or has fixed that. But if it's something you find yourself doing, you know, make those relevant changes so you don't get hurt doing these similar things. So, and with double bell work, which we haven't talked too much on, that's more advanced. So you wouldn't want to do that right off the bat. I would start with one kettlebell, which is all we require in momentum WOD training, and then progress from there. And the big change with double bell work is that your stance is going to have to go wider, but only if you're proficient with one bell first. So the last thing Action is doing, which I included because I think it's cool, he's doing, I think it's called the Quad Mace. It's a product from Onnit. I'll link it in the description below. He's performing what they call steel Mace 360s. I guess the whole thing isn't steel, but it's a Mace 360, which is a scapular mobilization exercise and a core stability exercise. And I included it because initially when we started up Momentum WOD, there were steel mace workouts and exercises included in the programming. But what wound up happening is we wound up doing away with the steel mace training in the Momentum WOD programming. And the reason we did that is because while it's fun and it's different, it doesn't add that much above and beyond what kettlebell training does. And I don't know that it really adds anything, so we ditched it in our programming. But it's a cool exercise, and it's a fun exercise if you're looking to add a little variety into your training. So that does it for Action Bronson's kettlebell and steel mace training routine. It's awesome to see the changes that he has made in his life and in his physique over the course of the last year and a half since he's really started tackling this training with the intensity and the intent to make a difference in his health. And it's something that I hope to see him continue to do over the course of time, to watch his progression and his evolution as a person, as an athlete, as a father now, all of the above. So that does it for Action's workout routine. I have enjoyed making this video. I've enjoyed watching him progress and learn over the course of the last year and a half. And I've enjoyed seeing the evolution of him as a person as a result of training in this fashion. You too can make that change. You too can make that evolution if you commit to it and you do so safely. If you want to get started with this sort of training, head over to momentumwod.com/join-now. We have a free 7-day trial of our jiu-jitsu kettlebell training programming. There's no credit card required. Just head over there, you punch in your name, and you can get started. If you want more kettlebell content like this and you have found value in this, you owe it to yourself. Hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, comment below, let us know what you want to hear us talk about in the future. I want to provide you with as much value and as much knowledge as possible so you can have a successful routine for your strength training in a way where you don't get hurt and it furthers your performance when it comes to the things that you love to do. So once again, this is Dr. Brandon Osborne from MomentumWOD.com. It has been a pleasure, it has been fun, and I can't wait to see you again next time. I'll see you then.